So we're back on the Madnette rot rod, and today we're going to start looking at figuring out how we're going to close up the ends of the rockers. So now that we got this secured where it's going to be welded at, I went ahead and made a mark square down from the edge of the door here so I know where we can cut this off and bend it at to try to get it lined up to the rear of the door. And we got the fender mocked up on it, and with some little bit of tweaking, pulling it in the position where we actually want it to sit, can make a mark here and do the same thing on the front to know where we're going to cut that off at. Now before I go ahead and take the rocker off to start working on that, I want to mark where we're going to be spot welding some things. So I'm marking at the ends of the door pan, or ends of the posts where those are, but on the front here we've already got holes where I drilled through to take the spot welds out. So I just transferred those holes to the metal here. Now on this one here, I'm going to go ahead and take a drill bit. We'll start drilling into this to drill far enough to make an indentation into the inner panel here, but not go through. And then when we get it all apart, we can finish making these holes, and I'll make spot weld holes so we can go through both sheets of metal into the inner sill. So if we drill through here, we know we're getting through about that far. That'll give us a nice hole in the outer skin and enough of a dimple in the second layer to then finish drilling it once it's on the workbench. So now that we got the rocker skin off here, you can see how just drilling into it gives us, really marks this really nicely, so we can go ahead and drill through this portion here, and then we can plug weld through this layer, that second layer, and into the actual sill, making for nice good plug welds there. And while I got this off working on it, we'll probably go ahead and punch holes through here so we can plug weld this on when we put it back in place. Now you can see here the actual profile of the rocker and how funky it actually is. Now I did get the flanges off a little bit here. When I was laying this out, I was back and forth between a couple different sizes of the flange here, and I may have marked one on one size and the other the other, and whatever. You know, for this particular project, I'm not going to get too worried about that. It's not going to be a problem. If I was working on something nicer, I'd worry about that. I still may trim this up a little bit, but we'll see. Now the other thing we're going to do here is we're going to actually run the exhaust through the sill assembly and out the rocker here. And we decided, since the MG uses an octagon for its emblem on the grill and on the trunk lid here, we're going to do a elongated octagon for the exhaust. I made up a sample piece just to kind of figure out what we were going to do here. It's going to be running through somewhere about in here on both sides. But after looking at this thing with the sample, I decided to change the sizes a little bit. This was like a 2 inches by 4 inches. We're actually going to go with like 1 3/4 by 4.5. And that would give us enough space to be able to make the hole in the rocker big enough and still fit within there for clearance. So I got to make up some more test pieces to actually dial that in and get what we really want, and then we can move forward on that part as well. So now we got the outer rocker up on the workbench. I've actually already punched all the holes for the plug welds across the top and the bottom. Actually, I've gone and sprayed the inside of it too. I would normally use a weld through primer, but I don't have any right now. So that's actually cold galvanizing compound, same thing we used on the inner sill. So now I gotta look at actually closing this up or finishing this out. So we need to cut this off, but where do I cut it off at? We know that we want about a 1/2 inch flange bent over 90 degrees, and this is the finished dimension. So that means we need to bend it just a little bit inside of that line so that once it's bent over, accounting for metal thickness once it's bent over, it'll end up at that length. And then we can then make another line a 1/2 inch out here. But now what I have to do is figure out, how am I going to finish the bottom of this? Originally, this would have been curved around. Of course, this would have been curved as well, but do I want to curve this thing around, or to just bring it square, or maybe just do a bit of an angle, like another 45 on the end here? That's what I have to decide, because this is not a project that we're trying to spend a ton of time on any one step and really try to make it as perfect as we can get it. This is more of just a fun project. Get it done, get it on the road, and start, having fun with it. So I'll sit down and figure out what I'm going to do with that and start marking things out until I figure out what this is going to actually look like. What I will do there is start out with, we're just going to go ahead and bend this over as just a way of marking it. Okay, we can just do like this and take this. I usually have some really thin metal to do this stuff with, but this works fine. You just go like that and use that as a marking guide to just extend that line straight on down to give me a straight line to go off of. And then I can figure out what I want from there. I think I'm just going to go ahead and start off with cutting it on the two edges and bending that down, and then figuring out the rest of it from there. I did find me a block here that just happens to be almost exactly the right width here. So that's going to work out really nicely. And we just have to line this thing up here just so to get the bend I'm looking for. And we get this lined up, which I could flip it over. A good way to do that would be to flip it over, measure back in, and add maybe about a 1/16, maybe a little less than a 1/16 of an inch, because this is 20 gauge we're using here. 16 gauge is a 1/16 of an inch. And just go a little bit less than a 1/16 of an inch extra, make a line, and then clamp that in there. I think for closing this thing up, similar to the way the factory did it, I'm going to go ahead and cut across here. I got some scribe lines here, and across and up. Now this may not be exact. I'm leaving this a little loose till I get it fit up in there, see exactly where it is, and I can trim it to final fit later if I need to. So now by cutting it this way, when I bend this over, there is going to be a small void there that we're going to have to fill in later, but I'll do that once it's on the car. We got this actually tack welded in, and we know exactly the angle of this, so we're not fighting having it welded together and not being able to pull it all the way against the bottom of the sill. So I got these pliers, very square edge on them here, and I actually have another set that I rounded off slightly. I picked up at a yard sale somewhere years ago. Works great for doing the stuff like this. We can just come in here and just Once we get this bent over far enough to know where that line is, I can just cut that off and then we can finish it on up. So now we got to look at the exhaust tunnel that goes through the rocker assembly. But we need to start with the exhaust pipe and nail in the size of that first. Because I did say before I didn't like this size. I didn't think it was going to work out right. I mean, we were trying to get 2x4. So what we're going to do is do 1 3/4 by 4.5. I spent some time drawing out a bunch of different sizes of octagons so I could take some measurements and figure out what was going to work for us, and writing it all down here. And when I was putting this together, I wasn't sure my dimensions were quite working out on this piece. So I went ahead and made a test piece out of some scrap, and yeah, I was a little off. But now I know exactly what I need to do to make it correct. And when we go to make these for real, they're going to be out of 16 gauge stainless. And I don't have any 16 gauge stainless in the shop right now. So this is going to stand in as the example to make sure everything fits the way we want it to fit. But we're going to make it a 1/2 inch bigger all the way around for the tunnel going through the rocker. And I got all my dimensions here. So now we just need to cut that out, bend it, and put that together. So in order to make the tunnel, we need 2 pieces, 6 inches wide, 7 1/4 inches long. I already cut them out. Now I've just got to mark them all and bend, what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 45-degree angles. There's 1/2. Use that protractor there, magnetic protractor, to tell me how far I'm bending it. That way I'm pretty accurate with my bends. And we just tack these 2 together. And when we tack those together, this should come in here and give us enough clearance to not worry about the exhaust rattling against the body. Don't want to catch that on fire. Just do some minor tweaking and make sure everything's nice and straight, and we can start marking it on the car. All right, let's go fit it to the car and figure out where it's going to sit. So I spent a little time under the car taking some measurements from the back side and seeing where the spring and everything's at, where the exhaust can go. And we're going to be right in this area right in here, to where the corner of this is going to be pretty close to where the spy line is. So I just took the spy line and extended it all the way down. So what I'll do is I'll put this in here to where that body line and the corner of this intersect. Just one of those little details like I like to do. So you might be wondering how I'm going to actually cut this and run it all the way through 3 layers of metal, and you'll see as we get going here. So we're going to go ahead and take this front face off, the rocker off, put it on the workbench, mark and cut this out and try to be really accurate with it. Then we'll install this back on and go from there. So I want to line up the bottom of this pretty much with the seam here. That'll give us just about an inch up here below the door. And I think that'll probably look pretty good. So we'll cut that out and then reinstall it back on the car, start the next step. I wouldn't be at all surprised if I still have to play with that a little bit to get it to fit. It should be a little on the tight side, and yes it is. So, yep, just keep working this hole until that slides in there. So we got that fitting pretty good now. Put this on the car and do the next step. Yes, I've welded this out. So we're going to go ahead and put this in here now and get this to look, relatively level. And the car is not perfectly level, but we can get this to get pretty level. Then we just come in here . Then we'll go ahead and take the outer rocker skin off. We'll cut that hole in the outer sill, and then do it all again to mark the inner sill. We actually have to remark this thing because we got it as an inside dimension. So we need to remark it now as an outside dimension. Cut this out the same way we did the outer rocker skin, and then reassemble the whole thing and mark the inside one. So now in order to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to take some long drill bits and get into the corners here, and we'll drill the corners and then flip it over, connect the dots, and cut it out from the other side. I actually had some slightly shorter drill bits in this that would still do this, but I don't know where they're at. Maybe I should go find those other drill bits. This drill bit isn't the sharpest. So I tried to drill it just over the lines so that I'm accounting for the thickness of the metal since those were inside dimensions. And we need once again, cut that out, file it so that everything fits well, and put it back in the car and make sure it all sits good. I should be able to do some pre-fitting right here on the workbench before we try it on there, and that way we're a whole lot closer on there because it's really hard to reach back in there and do anything with this. So I'll just work on that a little bit now before we actually put it back in the car. So, yeah, just a little bit right there and here, and well, probably fit. So we got that hole cut out, cleaned up, got everything put back together and mocked up so we can take a good look at it and see what we got here. And this is sitting pretty level like I want it to be. So now I can go around here and mark this all the way around on the outside and inside so I can trim it up to actually fit within the assembly. So now we got it in this far, I'm going to tack it in from the back side and try to get it tacked in through here so that it's sitting straight. Then I'm going to decide from there whether I want to take the whole assembly out of the car to weld this in on the workbench, or if I'm going to weld it in the car. But either way, I'm going to have to take the outer rocker skin off to weld inside and then put the rocker skin back on to then weld the outside portion. Probably all we can do right now, because we got a wedding to go attend.